Alrighty, welcome to the channel. So we often talk about Tesla, and who better to talk to about Tesla than Randy Kirk, who's a author who's written a few books about Tesla, and you cover Tesla very often on your channel. And I think it's a great opportunity to kind of just like poke into your mind and what your thoughts are on Tesla. And of course, everyone knows we have Tesla's earnings coming out next week, and I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the earnings like for next week?
Well, I've published that I think it's going to be between 65 and 75 cents. And not actually because I was going to be on with you today, but just because I was prepping for additional work later this afternoon on my channel. I asked Grok again because I had already asked Grok. And last week, Grok said 75 cents. And so then I asked it again. And this time, Grok came and I said, I want to see the details. So this time it said 88 cents.
Oh, wow.
So then I said, okay, well, what are the details that the street isn't getting right? Because the street's at 55 cents. And what do you think you're seeing that they're not seeing? And basically higher margins. So the street is actually suggesting lower margins, which makes absolutely no sense, given that it was a great month and they didn't have to give it away during the third quarter. And number two would be the energy numbers being so much higher. And he's Grok, he anyway, I do that all the time. My English professor wife doesn't like it at all that I call Grok he. Anyway, so energy would be the other part. He's giving it a full, Grok is giving a full 30 margin. So between those two things, that would be the primary things, not really reducing anything for EV credit or for ZEV credits. That is a mistake, I think, on Grok's part. So we might be looking at a dime off of that.
Right.
So that would be back down to 78 cents.
Yeah, no. I watched one of your recent videos. I noticed you said you're going to start implementing Grok a lot more often when you're just kind of getting news coverage. Do you use GPT and kind of compare it? But this is just off topic. Not at all. Just strictly Grok.
I am Elon Musk. That's it. No. Does that mean I haven't played with chat? Does it mean that I haven't looked at some of the other models? Definitely in the prep for our book, especially. But my basic thing is to get a system that I really like and then really try to go deep rather than going broad. And so Grok, for the most part, I've done a bunch of stuff. I've done a bunch of stuff with Grok. I tell it, do not give me, one side of the story, especially in political things. Specifically, always give me both sides. I don't want to ask you every time. Well, I still have.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I've been using Grok a lot more often too, and it's definitely it gives you a lot more details for sure in comparison to GPT. So I'm trying to get adjusted to it, But I was gonna share this over here on the screen. So we have just like a Bloomberg terminal kind of snippet here of what we see with like earnings per share and adjustment or estimates, and then alongside kind of plotted with Tesla's price action, right? And so what I do on my channel, I use a kind of a fusion analysis where I'll look at the fundamental side for Tesla, but of course, I also implement a little bit of the technicals, right? Looking at the charts, and typically you'll have one person who's kind of leaning more, okay, I hate the fundamentals, it's only technicals, and then the vice versa, the technicians are like, oh no, the fundamentals don't make sense. I think it's best to kind of have this fusion analysis, and what we are seeing is that Tesla's near all-time highs, right? It's not too far away, but we see that earnings per share for the estimates have significantly declined. And I wanted to ask, like, why do you think Wall Street, by the way, I'm wearing the Wall Street sweater here, but why do you think Wall Street often kind of has like more of this pessimistic view for Tesla, especially going into 2026?
Okay, so the main, so I'm one of those two characters you mentioned. I do no actual technical analysis.
Okay.
I know about 50-day or 100-day averages. I kind of know some of the lingo, and I do pay attention to some of the chartists in terms of their expectations. But I am a fundamentals guy, through and through. I've owned something like, I don't know, I've lost track of how many businesses I have. I put it this way: I have 20 businesses that made me enough money to pay the mortgage. So,
Right.
so I love financial, finances and keeping track of what the company's doing. So, to your question, the street is missing Robotaxi and Optimus.
Right.
That's basically what it's missing. It's missing energy too.
Of course, yeah.
It's probably also missing semi-truck alone. People don't realize that 50,000 semi-trucks is going to be the equivalent of 250,000 Model 3s
Right.
in terms of volume, and probably more than that in terms of profits. And that just counts the truck itself. That doesn't count the chargers that will go along with those. That doesn't count the charging income that's probably going to come out of that. It doesn't count the megapacks that will be sold with a lot of those. So yeah, they're completely missing energy. They're completely missing semi-truck. And then what they're really missing is the massive upside they're ignoring it, or they're giving it a low likelihood on Optimus Robotaxi. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like the dichotomy of like how Wall Street has to kind of do their analysis versus the luxury of an independent investor, right? Because Wall Street, it's not like a day-to-day perspective. They're not day trading, of course, but they're looking over the next 12 months, and it's really a short-term view, right? Because as an individual investor, you're kind of ignoring, okay, well, whatever the earnings reports show here for the last quarter, this is what I believe is going to happen in the future. And I definitely agree that with the energy segment of Tesla, we've seen it over the last few years grow exponentially, right? I know the picture that Wall Street likes to often kind of share is like, well, this is an auto company. And I've said that, right? Because a majority of the revenue comes from autos, right? Last time I checked, and this is just rough, someone could fact check this, but it was around like 74% of the revenues came from the vehicles. But things like the other segments like service and energy, it's not going to happen overnight, but we're seeing that trend of growth take place. And so it's very odd to me that the Wall Street kind of just is almost just agnostic to the growth that we see with the other segments and components, and especially with Optimus. I actually watched your video earlier today, and I saw that you read one of the questions for the earnings, and I think the question here, but it was a number one question, which I read: what are the plans for new car models? Will Tesla build a compact car model leveraging the unboxed Cybercab platform? And will Tesla build a traditional SUV and pickup truck in the Cyber truck platform? And so I was kind of disappointed that this was the number one question, because and I think you would agree, right? Because I don't think Tesla really is in a space right now to continue working on different models. And I'm honestly upset that there's not more questions on Optimus, right? I mean, what would you think? What's your number one question for this upcoming earnings, if you were to, ask your top question?
I think the question is included in the top 7, and I think that would be the robotaxi regulations.
Right.
So, what kind of view does Tesla have? Maybe they can't talk about it. I'm not sure. But if I was running Tesla, I would have lobbyists, and I'm sure they do. I would have people that are, sitting down and eating and going to the golf course with these regulators, and really making sure that they understand what our plan is, what we're trying to accomplish, and trying to get because I know what Elon's idea is. Elon's idea is, look, if I can give you the data that this is at least as safe as a human and maybe 3 times safer than a human, if I can put that data on the table, why do you care about any of the rest of this?
Right.
At that point, it would be unethical not to approve it for use. It'd be like having seatbelts presented to you as a potential, or airbags presented as a potential, and saying, well, we have to test these airbags for 3 years to find out what happens before we're going to make this thing go wide. And so I can understand, while it's still maybe under human, that the data is under human equivalency. Once it passes human equivalency, I agree with Elon. That's all you should have to do. Now, does he take that position and then not do the work, I worry sometimes. And I've written a book on Elon's 17 things that make him amazing. One of the things that tends to not, that you, if you want to subtract a little bit, tends to be this kind of, because this is so amazing, I don't have to advertise. Because this is so amazing, I may not have to have all these lobbyists in DC. So that is a question that I would have in terms of the overall way that Tesla's run.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you're right on the advertising. It just sucks because a lot of the influencers who cover Tesla, right? And let's say it's whether it be you, Farzad, and several other names, right? Both on YouTube, on X, right? We're including me, we're constantly talking about how great the product is, but we're also preaching to the same people who also agree how great the product is. And there's so many people that they just don't know how amazing the Model Y is, or the Model, I mean, all the vehicles really. I like the Model Y. I'm interested in getting a Cybertruck sometime in the future, but it's unfortunate that we don't have Elon kind of advertising more, because I think honestly the average person is just unaware of how the benefits and the amount of saving that you have from just not having to use gas, right? Using your or just the maintenance on like a ICE vehicle, right? So I think there's still like a majority of America who just don't know, right? They just don't understand how great the product is. And I'm hoping that, we do see, I mean, you've written on Elon, right? You said this was one of his negative traits, right? Where he'll kind of, focus on, well, this is so great, so we don't have to do this. Do you see a point where maybe the vision changes and they're like, okay, well, maybe we will step back and we will try to focus more on advertising to bring more of that brand awareness for the overall, how great the product is, because Tesla truly makes great products, And
listen, word of mouth. Okay, first of all, just let me also qualify myself. I have been doing advertising of one sort or another since I was 16 years old. I had a rock band, a serious rock band in my teens. We advertised the rock band. I did Amway when I was 19, and I did a serious amount of advertising on Amway. And then I started running other people's business, one other business, and then my own businesses ever since. And you have to obviously know how to advertise. So I've done everything but television. I mean, you go down the list. I've done radio, I've done YouTube, I've done all of it. But if you come back to the core principle, which is, Elon does everything on first principles. If your product is compelling and the price is compelling, which is a quote, that's what Elon talks about, then it should sell itself. It should get word of mouth, and nothing gets word of mouth any better than Tesla does. On the other side of the coin, I don't think that Elon was expecting the headwinds of 2023, starting in late 2023, right. His own political headwinds that he got. I don't think he really realized how much leaving the tribe would hurt him.
Right.
Switching sides. And so I think that is the point at which we started not selling out every unit. So I can't complain up until the end of 2023.
Right.
But starting in the third or fourth quarter, I forget the earnings call where he said things are going to be rough for a while. At that point, I would have thought, okay, we need to advertise. But then you run into his other problem, right? His other problem is he doesn't think that you should do these slick ads. And I'm okay, fine, do educational ads. But anyway, that's me. I think at that point he should have switched and said, it looks like we could have a year or two where we're not selling everything we can make. And let's throw $100 million at advertising and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, definitely the advertising would be like a significant boost, but for brand awareness. But going into the conversation of brand awareness, do you think that the brand has been tarnished because of him skewing towards one side of the spectrum in the political scale? Because even when I just have conversations, right, just colloquial conversations, like, hey, with friends, like Cybertruck is amazing, fire, like you know, and they're like, I don't want to ride in that, you know, I don't want to be associated with this, you know, this I forgot the names that they call it, but you know, just kind of saying it, like yeah, I can't even remember the names they call it. But do you think that there's severe brand damage is essentially the question, and can that eventually be repaired? Because to me, I'm just like, but it's a great car. Like you should not be worried about what, you know, political affiliation someone may have, right? And you know, I'm more of a moderate, right? So I don't lean too far to the right. There's some things that I definitely, and I'm not trying to get political, but things that I do agree with Republicans on many things. And then there's certain things I do disagree with. And then, of course, same thing for the left. You know, there's some things I don't agree with. But I wouldn't really look at a product like, you know, one of the cars and say, I can't buy this because the guy, he believes this, right? I think that's just kind of like a imbecilic kind of way to make a big purchase. Because aside from your home, you know, your vehicle is probably the second largest purchase that you're going to make. And it's like, do you really just want to base it just on this guy's, you know, opinion? But just wondering, do you think brand damage has significantly been tarnished, and is it repairable at this point?
So I currently live in Riverside, California, but for 50 years I lived in West Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so I still have lots of my kids. Two of my kids live in West Los Angeles, some of my friends. So West Los Angeles is, I don't know, ground central. Well, the Bay Area and West Los Angeles, ground central for Tesla sales. No place in the world except maybe Norway, you know, has a higher percentage of Teslas on the streets.
Right.
And so I think the problem goes back to what I said a minute ago. It's not so much if Elon had always been on the right, then I don't think anybody would be paying any attention.
Right.
He was on the left, and he was a darling of the left because he was selling something that fit into the
culture of the left. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when he made the switch, this is like, you know, when you stop smoking, you know, or you want to change churches, you know, right. The old crowd goes away, the new crowd loves you. And so I do think this will have it's going to be a lasting problem until unsupervised, which is only maybe a couple of months away. Once we have an unsupervised vehicle out there that you can buy and it just takes you wherever while you read the newspaper, it'll be one of those. Okay, let me give you an example. You may be able to tell I'm kind of to the right myself. Okay, I'm really solidly to the right. And everybody on my channel knows it. Anyway, and so I might choose not to shop at Target a year or so ago. And it wasn't a big deal. Okay.
Right.
But I didn't stop using Google. That was too important. I couldn't. Exactly. My ethics stopped because Google was too important. I was making money off of Google as well as using it to get information. So I think once it becomes important enough, to your point, when the unsupervised happens, I think the issue will slowly drift away.
Yeah, no, I think that's honestly a good example, right? Because what you're basically saying is like when something has so much utility, you're gonna have to try to put your bias aside and say, well, I mean, come on, I can't just ignore this, right? It's just like your story with Google. That's actually, I really like that concept, or just that anecdotal experience, right? Because you know, for sure, you know, not going to Target. Okay, yeah, I don't like Target, I don't like Disney, you know, but when you actually have something that provides value, it's hard to ignore, right? And I think the problem I do have with FSD is I'm just not sure when it really truly becomes unsupervised, right? I think, you know, we're always seeing significant improvements, but I'm just not sure because, you know, it's the running on joke is it's been year after year after year. And so you start to kind of lose kind of the optimism of, well, is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year, 5 years? So I noticed you mentioned within the next few months is possible, right? I mean, anything's possible. Just curious of like, what is having you with this high conviction that like in the next few months, it could possibly enter the realm of unsupervised? Just curious on that.
So I would say three things. Number one, Elon says so. And he didn't say so like he commonly does, like, well, you know, maybe by, you know, he said, no, we would have unsupervised by the end of the year. Now, I think there's regulatory issues, insurance issues that might not be might complicate that. But in general, all right. So that's number one. And he said it. Number two, we have unsupervised robotaxis running around the streets of Austin right now, running around the streets of San Francisco. That in Austin's case, there's no driver behind the wheel, and they've been doing this now since June 22nd. So that's pretty good evidence that they can run unsupervised.
Possible. Yeah.
Right. And then number three is the rollout this week of 14.1.2, where it only takes you a few minutes of watching the videos, and this thing is amazing. And I think the most amazing thing for people on your channel that haven't been paying attention to this, the most amazing thing is that you can literally go up to McDonald's. You can it will stop at the microphone. When you finish placing your order, it will move up to the first window. After you pay, it will move up to the next window.
Right.
After you get your stuff, it will pull out. And people have been trying to trick it. They've been trying to not, pick up not just like try not to give it any cues, and it still gets enough cues to make right decisions on that. At that point, you've got me. If you can do that, I think we're there. So now, again, there may be regulatory issues and/or insurance issues that may get in the way. Some people have said there might be an issue with Control Central, if you will.
Okay.
So right now in Austin, you've got people that are sitting there ready to go. If you get into a problem, you just speak to Grok. And you say, hey, Grok, the car's got a flat. What am I supposed to do? And so whatever it is, some people think that right now that might be one person per car. Some people think it might be 1 per 5 cars. Some people 1 per 10. And the question is, as that develops, will we go to 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 10,000? So for a robotaxi service where you're making bank, you can afford that person.
Right.
For just 1 million vehicles in the United States that are running around with you and me in our cars, you can't afford to have like 1 per 100. I think it's got to be more like 1 per 1,000 or 1 per 10,000.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was just gonna ask, or I was just gonna mention that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the channel, right? Because I often just talk about, well, let's look at the numbers or let's look at the chart, right? But I think you and also a few others on X, like Omar on Mars, right? I think that's the name, right?
Mars catalog. Whole
Mars catalog.
Mars catalog, yeah.
Catalog, right? As far as art, I think you guys do a great job of also, kind of sharing like the story behind the business as well and what's actually taking place versus, hey, this is what the gross margins are looking like, right? And lastly, I wanted to ask, because this could also influence just overall price action with Tesla, right? Kind of bringing it more from like a macro perspective and a technical perspective together, right? We have this government shutdown, right? Still, I think we're on day 16. We see gold, hitting these extreme euphoric levels, right? Now, we also were supposed to get some economic data like the CPI, which, is getting delayed because of the government shutdown. And so because of that, we may have, a central, like the Federal Reserve, not being as aggressive with the rate cuts. And maybe, it could have been, 50 basis points coming in October, right? But now that they're kind of running around in the dark, it may just be a 25 basis points, right? I think the future markets are pricing in like a 97% chance it's going to be 25 basis points, right? So we're going to have this slower slope downwards with the federal funds rate because of, potentially data being kind of gone, which may not allow the Federal Reserve to be as data dependent as they claim to be. So with that said, that means that we may end up seeing like kind of the slower return to a less restrictive environment. And that could possibly mean, hey, financing for vehicles, it may not get cheaper until possibly 2026. And so with that said, do you think that with this upcoming earnings, right? And let's say we don't have the fully unsupervised driving come out, right? Could we possibly see Tesla at new all-time highs? I'm going to put the chart back here, right? I think, let me go ahead and take a look. I think Tesla at one point, let me
488. 488 was the intraday
Was
trade.
488.54. Yeah, so we're honestly not too far off. If I'm just mapping
10%.
it out right here. We're honestly like 12% away, which is not too far off, honestly. Do you think there's a possibility that we hit new all-time high? And again, not that you have the crystal ball, right? This is just any guess, right? Right.
No, I am a nutcase who goes way out on a limb, and I've been absolutely wrong on some of my predictions, but I have nailed prediction after prediction after prediction. I just nailed one today. I said that the 10-year would get under 4% before the end of the year, and last time I checked, it was 3.98 or 97. So I nailed that one. Nice. I've nailed a bunch of predictions like that. Like for instance, I called that there would be no recession in 2023. When everybody said there was going to be a recession, I said there wasn't. Right. So there's been I do a very deep financial story on my channel as well. Very, very deep. I give all the numbers every day with analysis. So gold and oil, and you go right down, and what are they all doing, and why? What's causing this movement? So right now, I would say that the Fed, according to my theory, the Fed funds rate is impacting Tesla two ways. One, in terms of the utilization of a lower percentage when you're doing current evaluation of future profits. So if you're using right now, maybe somebody's using 14%. Well, maybe next year they'll be using 13 or 12% because the Fed funds rate comes down. Number two is, as you point out, either the rate will come down on interest for people buying cars, or the cost to Tesla to pay down that rate becomes less, so their margins go up. So either way, that's a huge win. That is not what's going to cause Tesla to go to all-time highs. What's going to cause Tesla to go to all-time highs is going to be robotaxi actually happening. Right. Because as we pointed out earlier in the story, there's a fundamental story on Tesla that has to do with the numbers. Okay, the numbers that Wall Street looks at, you can put it on a spreadsheet. You say, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Okay, then you have the optionality. That's what I call it. It's like having an option in Tesla. Right. When you're buying Tesla right now, you have an option in robotaxi, you have an option in Optimus. Once robotaxi, you take the safety driver out, and you start increasing the cities that it's in, and you start increasing the number of vehicles, and it's a real business where people can go, okay, they're serious now.
It's no longer just the car business here, right?
Yeah. It's not a test. The robotaxi is a real thing. Once that happens, I think the stock goes to all-time highs and beyond. I've actually been predicting year-end 700 to 1,000. And the difference between the 700 and 1,000 will basically, in my view, come down to two things. Number one, how many cities, how many cars are out there? The more cars, the more cities, the more likely we get closer to 1,000. And number two, do we get a reveal on Optimus version 3 that shows it doing real work in a factory, blah, 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 something that really makes it more substantial.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's my guess. And I have $2,000 as my number for the end of 2026.
Okay. So very, very bullish here, right? I think I'm trying to remember where Kathy Woods are.
She's at 26. She's at 2,600 on a base case for 2030. Okay. If you bring that back to current value at a 15% rate,
right,
that means the stock should be trading for $1,303 right now.
Right now, okay, got you. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, kind of similar, right? With the it's just her predictions is a little bit further. Yours is just you said 2027. But lastly, I wanted to just talk about Optimus, right? We saw the Kung Fu video, which I'm not too sure if it was the guy in the back was controlling maybe like
was not.
Okay. So yeah, what I would really like to hear with this next earnings call is just what are we doing with Optimus, right? I want to hear like more about that too, because that's honestly where I'm also more enthusiastic about. Like I have a lot of optimism for Optimus, right? Because this is essentially something that can replace just the labor force, right? In several different industries. I think you mentioned that you mentioned that in one of your books, right? I saw a video of you mentioning it, right? With Optimus.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've spent a lot of time on Optimus, a huge amount of time. Here's my take on Optimus. For 30 years, almost 30 years, I was a plastics manufacturer.
Right.
I was doing blow molding, I was doing extrusion, I was doing injection molding, I was doing printing on plastic. So I know the plastics business really, really well, but I also am a manufacturer. I had over 100 employees in this business. And I'm sitting here, the first time I see Optimus, I'm going, oh, I don't need her anymore. Oh, I don't need him anymore. I mean, the way it was the first time they showed it to us, because
Right.
well, these were bicycle water bottles. How much of an Optimus robot do you need to be standing in front of an extrusion blow mold and pick up the bottle and put it into a box, which I was paying
Right.
people to do?
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
So,
The only
I looked around my factory and I said, I could buy that today, the way it is, as clumsy as it is. If I can
Right.
train and just do this repetitive thing, I can make money on it right now.
Exactly. No, for sure. The only concern is just with AI and the robotics is what happens when we have like this huge just uh like displacement of the workforce going into that. That's the real concern. I think that we should probably be considering. But
Well,
you know,
yeah, okay, but that is what I'm writing on now.
okay,
Okay. So my chat, I have a new book coming out. It's called AI Rising: How to Thrive in the Age of Abundance. And so the book is divided kind of into two. One is looking at the entire stack. So from extraction and mining and refining, extraction, mining and refining, and then up the stack to the data centers, to actual data, to the applications, et cetera. Just going right up the stack. So we take a chapter for each level of the stack, and we have experts. There was 10 authors for the book, each one having an expertise in a different area.
Oh, nice.
My favorite chapter in the book is my own chapter. It just worked out that way. Okay. I wasn't expected, but it's chapter 3 in the book. And chapter 3 in the book says, look, number one, we've had this disruption before. 95% of the workforce was farmers, in the 1800s. Then it went to the city. There was a point at which telephone operators was the number one job in the country, pushing and pulling. There's a point at which secretaries was the number one job. You just go down the line.
Right.
And we've had all this kind of thing before, and it basically just pushes people into better jobs as we become wealthier. Second of all, there's going to be things that we could never make before. So I love new products. And a huge percentage of what we did at that plastics manufacturing company was look at new products for the bicycle industry. People would come in, oh yeah, we got this new product, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of time I go, that is a great new product, but if it's going to cost me $3 to make it, it's got to go for $15 retail. Nobody's going to pay $15 retail.
Right.
But if all of a sudden I can use a robot and I can get the cost down to $2, and I can sell it for $9.99. Oh, now this is a product. Well, that's going to happen a bajillion times.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Okay. And then number 3 is we're going to have the wealth is going to make people able to do so much more in terms of higher level things. So buying second homes, buying boats, traveling like crazy. And all of those things are going to create new jobs because they're not the kind of things that the bots are going to be the perfect, really, really good at. So building a house, sure, they'll build part of it, but a lot of it still has to be done by humans. Building a boat, yeah, that's going to be pretty sophisticated for a while. People working at restaurants and hotels and doing travel things, yeah, there'll be a lot of robots, but it's going to be a lot of humans. So the book goes into way more detail. I think I have 15 categories of jobs that will be dramatically increased or completely new that will employ millions.
Nice. No, I definitely would love to check it out. I think you mentioned earlier the date when we spoke, but if you could just share that again for when it's going to be releasing, the title, and where they could get it at.
Yeah, it's AI Rising: How to Thrive in the Age of Abundance. It will be on Amazon. It'll be in paperback, hardback. It will be in Kindle, and it will be Audible. And and at least the hardback and paperback and Kindle should be available about the end of the month, around maybe the 28th of October, something like that. The Audible typically takes a little longer, so that might take another week or so.
Nice, nice. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to have you, right? Everyone make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to Randy's channel as well, and be on the lookout for his new upcoming book. And with that said, I just want to thank you again for just having this quick chat here on Tesla, and we'll see with this upcoming earnings. Take care.
We'll see.